Okay. Worked. All right, let me check YouTube. Okay, we are now live.
Everybody ready to get started?
Yes.
Okay.
I still have.
I will call to order the January meeting for the City of Asheville Civil Service Board. And if we're ready to proceed, we will take attendance. I'm present. Carol Goins. Is Mr. Eskovitz present?
Present, thank you.
Mr. Webb?
Yeah, present.
Mr. Devereaux?
So when I get down to
Mr.
public
Hahn?
comment, I'm guessing
Present.
you guys didn't get any
We
report,
have
right?
a quorum.
Didn't get any emails or anything?
So everyone has seen the agenda. Does anyone want to add anything to it, or I'll entertain a motion to accept the agenda and we can proceed as it is printed.
Alan Eskovitz, I propose that we accept the agenda as printed.
Is there a second?
It's Carter Webb, I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded that we proceed with the agenda as printed. All in favor, Mr. Devereaux?
Aye.
Mr. Eskovitz?
Aye.
Mr. Hahn?
Aye.
Mr. Webb?
Aye.
And I vote aye. So we'll proceed with the agenda. Did everyone, when you got the agenda, also
Okay, you have
should
the
have
phone number?
received the minutes? Has everyone had an opportunity to
Yes,
review
Janet,
them?
good
They
to
were the
go.
minutes of our meeting on December 2nd, 2021.
828-712-1481.
Yes.
Does anyone have any questions, changes?
Mike Hahn, I'd like to make one amendment
Okay,
that on the motion to approve the fifth member, I think we ought to put in, there was approval of Rick Devereaux as the fifth member. So we actually know who we approved.
So put his
Very
name in
good
the minutes,
point.
yeah.
Okay.
And was it 4-1? This is Carter Webb, sorry. Was it a 4-1 vote? Even though,
It was a 4 with 1 abstention.
Yeah, I abstained.
so does that count as a no?
it goes with the majority.
That shows low self-confidence on my part.
Abstentions go with the majority, so technically it is a 5-0 vote. then,
Okay,
technically.
5-0
Okay.
abstention.
That's what I was wondering.
Any other changes or amendments? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes with the one correction.
I move we approve the minutes, Alan Eskovitz, I'm sorry. I
Yeah,
move
so you
that
just
we
went
approve
in
the
and
minutes
checked
of
it to say there's no
12/2/21.
line or no callers or
Is
whatever.
there a second?
When do I do that?
Mike Hahn, on
After this?
second.
No, when they
It's
get
been
down
moved
to.
and properly
the
second
public
that
Oh, right here.
we
Oh, okay.
Yep,
adopt
so
the
they're gonna say,
minutes
do we have any public
from
comment?
the
And
December
say,
2nd, 2021 meeting with the one stated change. All in favor, Mr. Webb,
Aye.
Mr. Hahn,
Aye.
Mr. Eskovitz,
Aye.
Mr.
Okay.
Devereaux,
Either way,
Aye.
I'll stop back up.
and
Well,
I vote
guess you can
aye
just
as
log in,
well. So that is up. The minutes are approved with the one correction.
Thank you so
Are there any
much.
updates or
Yeah, just-
reports?
You just got your two different tabs, right? So it's, you're in the meeting here and then you
Okay,
just go
hearing none,
over.
we'll move on. Is
To
there
the
any
public input.
unfinished
Okay.
business?
No, we got it.
Oh, actually, it's this thing.
Not hearing any, we can
Not sure
move
what
on
numbers are.
to
Okay,
new business.
text me if you need me.
Thank
you.
First thing
Yeah,
on
make
that
sure- make sure
agenda
I'm logged
is
out.
the
Yes,
2022 business meeting. I believe every year, and Attorney Henning, correct me if I'm wrong, we just need to adopt what date and time we're going to set for the meetings.
That's correct, and I want to give Ms. Barrett credit for having stayed on top of that better than I had. That I was thinking, your last meeting with the elections that we did, it had gone past me that it is in the Civil Service Act that the board shall meet in January of each year to adopt a regular meeting schedule. So that is the purpose for that.
Okay.
Business.
Is there any, I guess we need to have a motion, a formal motion. Mr. Henning?
You do.
Okay, Mr. Eskovitz?
I move that we continue to meet on the first Thursday of each January at 2:30.
Of each month?
I'm sorry, of each month. Yes, thank you.
We just did on January.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly second that for the 2022 calendar year, the board keeps its meetings on the first Thursday of each month at 2:30. Is there any further discussion or comment? If not, all in favor, Mr. Eskovitz,
Aye.
Mr. Hahn,
Aye.
Mr. Webb,
Aye.
Mr. Devereaux,
Aye.
then I vote aye. And the second order of business, I see Chief Burnett has joined us. There is an Asheville Fire Department promotional process update. Chief Burnett, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So this is not an action item for the board, rather just an informational update. We have two administrative housekeeping items that we need to take care of through fire department policy. I just wanted to share that information with the board. One is related to our promotional eligibility lists. And so currently, as y'all are aware, we provide a promotional test, we establish an eligibility list, and as we have vacancies, we will offer those positions to the top scorer for those and just go down the eligibility list. What we don't have a mechanism or a tool for, and this is very unique, obviously, is when one of those candidates says, this is just not the time in my career to accept that promotion. Those lists, as y'all know, are good for a year. And so we had a situation where a candidate expressed that. And so we went to the next candidate and they accepted the job. However, things change in people's personal lives, and they have interest in taking that job later on while the eligibility list is still active. We don't have a tool for that. And so what we're going to be doing with our policy within the fire department is just allowing someone who says, okay, we're offering them that position, they scored at the top of the list or wherever they were, and they say, this is just not the time in my personal life to accept this promotion, we'll put them at the bottom of that list so that if something does change, that doesn't eliminate them from that opportunity that they have successfully shown that they would promote well into. Yes, sir.
Chief, how long does that list stay active then while the position is still vacant?
Yeah, so we have established all of our eligibility lists for 1 year. And so from the time that the process ends and the eligibility list is established, 365 calendar days. So for example, July 1st to June 30th. And so if somebody on July 1st, we have that vacancy and they say, yeah, I wanted to be a lieutenant, but there's been some situations in my life where I just can't take that additional work responsibility on right now, but maybe in 6 months I would like to. And so they would just go to the bottom of that list, and that nothing would change. That list still would just be that same year. It still expire on June 30th. And the only thing different is that candidate would be still eligible to fill that vacancy. Yes.
One follow-up. So if the candidate is, let's say, the highest scoring candidate and most eligible on those on the list, and the candidate declines, that individual is then placed at the bottom of the list, even though they may change their mind?
Yeah, and I think that certainly we can operate within that policy, whatever makes the most sense. What we don't want to happen is just that candidate just to have that one opportunity only. So whether they just move down or they move to the bottom, I think is something that we certainly should do some determination as to what would make the most sense and what is most fair. But the goal is just to make sure that the person's not removed from the list completely.
I guess, Chief, on that note, it seems like the balance might be between, wanting to be fair, so that if another opportunity arose, the individual might still have a shot at a promotion. But on the other hand, I suppose you wouldn't want someone just sitting there cherry picking, waiting for the sort of their preferred opportunity and just being able to have the luxury of staying at the top of the list until the job they want comes along. And that wouldn't be fair to anybody else.
Yes, sir. Thanks for mentioning that, because that certainly could be a possibility that would be unfair to the other candidates.
Does anyone else have any questions or comments for Chief Burnett? Chief, is there anything else?
Yes, ma'am. One other item, and
okay.
y'all likely are familiar with this because this is what the police department does, and we just want to mirror their policy related to eligibility lists. So the question that Mr. Escovitz just asked about the length of our lists are always 12 months. We had a situation recently where the list expired, and for a safety officer, the list expired with a candidate still on that list, but just because we didn't get down to that point in the list where there were vacancies. And then, so we advertised for a new process so that we have a new list for a year. And we ended up for this process only having one candidate. And it happened to be the exact same candidate that already proved themselves 12 months earlier to be able to pass that promotional process and place themselves on an eligibility list. What we did, just to make sure that we were in line with all of our current policies and practices, we held another process for that one candidate. And so we thought going forward, rather than doing that in those situations, mirror what the police department does and just extend that list for up to 6 months increments as needed in situations like that. And so that way we're not bringing in assessors. This candidate is not having to prepare for the promotional pieces that they have already successfully accomplished because there was only one candidate. So that's what we would be doing with that policy change as well.
Any other questions or comments for Chief Burnett? Okay. Chief, is there anything else?
No, ma'am. Thank y'all for the input and appreciate the opportunity to.
So there's no public input?
Well, thank you for sharing all of this with us and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, y'all.
Happy New Year, Chief.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you, Chief. Is there any comment from the public at this point? Any comment from the public?
There is no public input at this time. Thank you.
It just for the record, does somebody check the chat in case somebody put something in the chat or?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay, moving on. An informal discussion of future agenda items.
Madam Chair, I think this topic would be appropriate for this section. Before the meeting, there was some discussion among a couple of members about the question of whether or not the board can have, you do have a pending hearing, as you all know, we've begun to try to assemble the dates for that. As it stands and as it has stood for, going on a couple of years now, the city's practice and policy has been to hold virtual meetings as a result of the pandemic. We have not had a live quasi-judicial hearing during that period of time to have to answer this question. The question was, can we have a live in-person hearing with these upcoming matters or any others that come up while we also are trying to follow this policy in light of the pandemic? Again, it has been the city's policy that it's the city council and all of its boards and commissions have been meeting virtually ever since the onset of it, and for reasons that I think we all recognize. And it was Mr. Escovitz's comment, and I certainly want to open the floor for him if he wants to sort of bring his point forward about in-person hearings. Alan, you want to add or share with us what your thoughts
Sure.
are?
My only question was, it's often helpful, especially in a quasi-judicial situation and hearings that we're going to be having, next month and who knows how many this year, to see the individuals present face to face, and body response, facial responses, just how they react to questions that may be raised. And I think for me, that's important. I mean, rather than having it mediated through the internet, I'd like to have face-to-face contact with individuals. And if we have to be masked, that's fine. But my preference would be in-room, face-to-face hearing. So I don't know how the others feel about that. And, it may go against, I don't know, city policy, but I don't know what the state policy is on that also, John.
Well, let me just say that as a trial lawyer, I think, is there an echo?
Yeah.
Okay. We've been doing almost all of the family court hearings for about probably over a year and a half, close to 2 years now, have been done in virtually, it's a different platform, it's WebEx, but same basic thing we have here. And while I will agree with everything you said, Alan, it's not optimal, but it does work out surprisingly well in the vast majority of cases. I will say that. Better than I might have originally thought that it would.
I'll yield to your experience.
I'll say that. But I will say for the record, and I think all of the trial court judges would agree as well, and we'll say exactly what you said, that nothing beats actually being able to eyeball somebody, face to face. But given the situation we're in, this works, I think, better than most of us thought that it would.
Yeah, and I would add too, I would agree with everything Alan said too, except for one point. When you're in person now, you have to be masked. And when you're masked, you're no longer face to face. You're eyeball to eyeball, which has value, but when you can't see the whole face, I can see all your faces right now, but in person, I mean, just Carter and I just left a Rotary meeting where we're all masked up, and that's nice, but there's a missing element there when you can't see someone's full face and interact that way.
I agree with you, Rick, and the only reason why I suggested masks would be, if we needed a qualification for that type of a hearing to allow it to go forward in a face-to-face situation, then I would go with the mask. But and again, I want to ask John: does the state statutes have? Is there any rulings from the state right now related to this?
There is some guidance, and there's law from the state on it. I don't know, and as I said, in the time that we've been dealing with the pandemic, you haven't had a hearing come before you that has required me to look into what the city's policy and practice of not having any in-person meetings, being all virtual, would have on you. I think it's not a legal requirement that you only be virtual. I think that to my knowledge, and I could be wrong about this, and I would want, if you want me to look into whether you can have an in-person, I would want to discuss this some and double check with the city. And my understanding that there's not an ordinance that's been passed. It's not a law they passed that says all these hearings must be virtual. So I think you could legally meet in person. Now, you would want to take all of the precautions that you're talking about to try to socially distance, to wear masks and everything else that comes with that. And that would likely mean finding a very different setup than we're used to, where you have a hearing and as you say, you're able to see that person because they're maybe 10 feet away from you. That is not likely to be the case if you had an in-person hearing right now. I'm thinking more like Harris Cherokee Center. I mean, way far away from you. So I don't know how much can be gained from that if we do all the practical things. What I can tell you as I sit here right now is law about it, is the same rules that have required us to do all of these hoop-de-doo roll call votes, which I have to brag on you guys for a second. Out of all of my clients, you do by far the best job of actually getting through all of those votes. It is a roller coaster to try to remind somebody they've got to do it when they're now gotten used to more in-person meetings and everything. Those same rules provide that quasi-judicial hearings essentially have to be, if they're going to be virtual, they have to be with consent of both of the parties. So the parties have an opportunity under those rules to say the kind of thing that you're talking about, Alan. I don't think we can have this in a fair way if this is not in person, and I object to having it as a virtual hearing before whatever the tribunal is, and in that case, it would be you all. So, you know, the parties do have some opportunity to weigh in on that about whether or not they think they can have it fairly in a virtual setting. I tend to agree with Carol that I think that, you know, while there definitely are some negatives about it, and if we could just wish the pandemic away, we of course would meet in person immediately for that kind of thing. I think that folks have gotten used to it to a larger extent, and we can have as effective a hearing, in my opinion. Now that's subject to, you know, what the parties think about it, and that you all think as the finder of fact on these. But that's my take. There is some state law that allows the parties to weigh in.
One follow-up question, John, is, and I appreciate your guidance on this. Since we're a board that's established under state law, does that preempt anything that the city might have in terms of their qualifications for meetings, or just, you know, requiring the fact that they have to be virtual right now? Does state statutes preempt that?
So the state statutes don't really affect, I think to the extent they do, it's that the Civil Service Act says that the Civil Service Board is created as a part of the city of Asheville's government. So, I mean, you are a part of the city of Asheville government in that sense. And so, and that's where I would, if you tell me to figure out how we can have an in-person hearing for these things, I'll explore it. But and as I say, I don't think that the policy and practice that the city has necessarily a hard and fast legal requirement that you can only meet in a certain way. I think that certainly by ordinance, they could have said any meeting that's going to happen in the city of Asheville for all these health reasons that a municipality has pretty broad control over for that reason. They could have said any meeting is going to be virtual and you can't have more than 20 people in a room together at the same time, all that kind of thing. I'm not aware of that being a factor in terms of your ability to meet in person. But so I think just it's a practice and a policy in the city that there other boards and commissions are following. I don't know that you have violated any law to meet in person. If you did, but I would want some clear direction from the board for me to explore that more with the city if that's your inclination.
I don't see Mr. Maddox still with us, but I was going to say if he had any thoughts on behalf of the city, but I guess the attorneys John and John can maybe look into that. It probably, Mr. Maddox is back. Do you have any thoughts that you would like to share with us on that at this time? Mr. Maddox?
I don't. We've been back and forth with the city, in the city around our meetings, and there's been so many different changes. I know that we've had a couple of quasi-judicial hearings, not in this context, but in other contexts. And, you know, mixed results from a technological standpoint, I would say. So I would want to, my boss has certainly had a lot to do with those. I would want to talk with him a little bit before we say how we're going to go one way or the other.
Well, I don't know if you heard, but my suggestion was if you and Mr. Henning could maybe talk at some point before our next meeting and get back with us to sort of see where we stand and what options we have, because my personal opinion is this thing tends to change week by week almost. So who knows where we'll be by I forgot what our next meeting is, February 5th or 6th or whatever it is. So who knows where we'll be at that point. Councilmember Whistler, did you have your hand raised for a question?
I just wanted to I know that one of the things that that Brad Branham has told us is everybody has to agree to meet in person. So like all 5 of you would have to say you wanted to meet in person. Like it couldn't be a hybrid. I know that that's one of the rules about this. So if one of you said, I don't want to meet in person, then it has to be unanimous. That's the only thing that I really remember, that, you kind of can't do a hybrid.
Okay. Does anyone else have any questions or comments or thoughts to share?
Yeah, I guess I just reiterate, given what Council Whistler just said, I would personally be against meeting in person while there's still a Buncombe County mask mandate in effect. I think it would detract from our ability to gauge things when we can't see someone's full face. So.
And I gotta echo what Rick's saying as far as, I mean, if I'm in court, then I'm in trouble. So I don't have a lot of trouble. I don't have a lot of interaction in the courts. But when I do estate planning, because if we meet with clients in person, it's in a mask, and it does change the conversation, and it changes to me, it works better doing it through Zoom or through this or whatever virtually than it does to meet in person with a mask on. That's just my opinion.
Any further comments or questions? Are there any other informal discussion / future agenda items?
It's kind of informal topic, but any guidance, Carol, on we're doing these doodle polls on availability for a potential grievance hearing, and it might be worth just understanding sort of the importance of that timeline, because we all have other things on our calendar, but it might be good to kind of have a sense of when we should reshuffle our calendar to make this a priority versus just seeing what's the best time for us all to get together.
That was going to be my next point,
okay.
Was to remind everybody, if I just did it right before I signed on, and I think there might be one person who hasn't, at least when I was signing in. So if all the board members could make sure that you have filled out the doodle poll.
So
and
I just pulled it up. It looks like I'm the only one that has conflicts for those 3 days.
Oh, okay.
Looks like everybody's good except for me. I've got meetings on the 8th, the 9th, and the 10th already booked. And I mean, if I need to reschedule them, I can attempt to do that. I hate to hold it up, be the only one that holds it up. It looks like I am.
And Carter, I don't mean to weigh in too heavily on this or put any pressure on you to do that. I will just say this is something that was received in, I think it was in the first week in December, and it's been waiting a bit.
Okay, I'll do what I can.
Or are there other dates that we've bypassed already that might be better for you, Carter?
I did email Shannon and say that the 15th through the 18th and the 21st to the 25th I could do.
And I was the hold up on those. And mine is court. I could maybe go out to, since we've got a few minutes and we're all here. What about the next week? Honestly, except for Friday afternoon on the 18th, I could do any day that week. Except Monday and Friday afternoon. So I could do Tuesday the 15th, Wednesday the 16th, Thursday the 17th, all day.
And that's what I had emailed Shannon. I can do those 3 days as well.
Okay.
And I had planned to update the doodle poll and send it one more time with those new dates that you shared, Carter. So, but it sounds like there may be some consensus around those dates. So I can send that out just to confirm with everybody.
That might be a safe thing to do. And
That's
that way,
the 14th. I'm sorry.
Yes. That way it's far enough out. If I get it on my calendar in the next couple of days, I'm set.
Okay.
That's February 15th, 16th, 17th we're looking at?
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah, that works for me.
That way I only have to reschedule 2 as opposed to about 8 or 9. So, sorry.
And hopefully we won't need all of that time, but we've learned in the past that it's better to go ahead and schedule a block of time. And then if you don't need it, it's freed up.
Yes, I concur wholeheartedly.
Shannon, do you expect this to be a one-day hearing?
I don't know. I don't know.
So do we need to block 2 days?
Yes. So we're
Okay.
actually, so actually we're asking you to
3?
block those 3 days.
3 days, okay.
And if it's helpful at all, I will say that opposing counsel and I, in this case, have been discussing some stipulations that might help to limit some of the issues and therefore the amount of time you'll have to devote to this matter. We're still working through that though.
So we should block out at least 2 days?
I'm not the one who goes and deliberates these things and takes forever. That's on y'all. So you we'll figure it out.
Oh my God,
And give us some good facts.
Shannon, these are full days then we're talking about, starting at what time?
We'll try to start at 9.
9, okay. Okay.
Okay, and Council Person Whistler, do you have anything you would like to say to the board from council?
No, just thank you for your service.
Anyone from the city? Anything else? Mr. Henning, is there anything else you think for the board?
I don't have anything further, Madam Chair.
Well, hearing that, I can entertain a motion to adjourn, and depending on our grievance hearing, our next regularly scheduled meeting would be February 3rd at 2:30. So I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Alan Eskovitz, I
Tell
second.
me when to stop streaming.
It's been moved and seconded that we adjourn at 3:02 p.m. All in favor, Mr. Eskovitz,
Aye.
Mr. Devereaux,
Aye.
Mr. Hahn, Mr. Webb,
Aye.
and I vote aye. The meeting is adjourned. Happy New Year, everyone. Take care.
Happy New Year.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Good seeing everybody. Bye.
Stop streaming.